last 20 years that reenactment has really grown. And now, if you're into history, you can dress up as a Roman right the way through to World War II, do whatever you want. However, amazingly enough, the tactics used by the police 17 years ago are very reminiscent of things I'm very familiar with. They're very similar to actually medieval and Roman tactics. The reenactment itself, then, all reenactments are recreations as close as we can make them. But things have changed since 1984 in terms of the ground at Orgreave. Now, in 1984, all this open-cast mine was actually the coke plant just there. After the coke plant closed, it became a mine, and this lake heaps and the actual open cast mining has moved about. But basically, everything this side of Orgreave is literally now a big hole in the ground. So what we've actually done is to move our battlefield from over here where it was, across the railway bridge, and into this field here, which is just behind the houses that played quite an important role in 1984. Can I just ask for a show of hands to see how many of you were actually there in 1984? So it's quite a significant number. Okay. This is a recreation, not a refight.
I remember watching it on TV when I was 17 or 18. I was at school, and it made an impression upon me there of just the horses going through, all those iconic images of riots. But it was a kind of a moment of realisation for me, looking at that and just thinking, well, there's something seriously wrong with this country if this is what we have to do to people.
And how do you feel about the reenactments? I mean,
I'm looking forward to it, mate. It's going to be a good experience, I think, to relive it. I mean, we're only a young lad at time, and I think I was only 20 at times. So.
Have you got permission? We have. We've got permission from several house owners to actually run in and actually go into the house. So if you actually did that, it would be great.
Well, I went up at Edge and behind Edge, and somebody come to the door and says, "What are you doing?" I says, "Is it all right to stay here?" And they said, "Yeah."
And I tripped, and I sprained my ankle. I was in agony, I thought I'd broke it. I couldn't move, and I said to this bloody copper, "You can arrest me, I can't bloody move," right? And that day there was a big picket, a lot of Scots and Geordies. By the way, I live in Doncaster. I says to this copper, "You can arrest me, pal, and get me some bloody first aid." So I don't want to arrest you, cop. I want you to fucking crawl out of Yorkshire, don't come fucking back.
I mean, our coppers were all right. It was Met and Army. I mean, they brought a lot of Army in there. And it was them and Met we were aggro with. When our coppers were on, you could tell it were our coppers because they were just standing fags out. I was ready for it, lads. They come in to win. And then we used to have a jostle with them. But when Met were on, it was up front. It was really nose to nose sort of thing. So there were two different sides, like I said.
People are excited, I think, which I think is the best thing, and they're enthusiastic, which is half the battle. And I think it's because no one has spoken about these things in public for quite a long time, and there's a lot of things that still have to be resolved.
My argument is not the technical data of what the government was planning in that particular time. It's what's happened after. They've still allowed all the pits, in particular in Yorkshire, and indeed all over the coalfield, to close. And there's been no real opposition towards it.
I worked in pit until it stopped. Then I've been a milkman since, and now I'm a Royal Mail driver now.
We're going fishing, we're going to Trent. We're Oldham Towers, mate. What, at 5 o'clock in the morning? Let's set up a retailer to Oldham Towers, kid. All week cloth caps on. Who Wellingtons?
One day we went to Montserrat, right? And as soon as we eat coppers, right, we all got under blankets, right, laid it back. Of course, when they pulled up, she said, "Where are you going?" She said, "Oh, I'm going to dig my mother's garden over." She lives in Nottingham, I live up here. He says, "Oh, can we have a look in back?" He says, "Ah." So of course, with blankets on, we're all set there. He says, "It must be a big fucking garden."
The 84 miners' strike was a crossroad of history where a whole generation could have went a different way had the outcome been different. Orgreave, to some extent, would help to determine which way the strike was going to go. Not effectively on its own. I mean, with or without it, we could have won or lost. But it was a very, very important part. So that's why it became... that's why the battle became so bitter. We were fighting for more than just that field, or more than just those few lorries.
I was chasing to a garden shed doing it that day. Like we saw down by an ice cream van at the top. Coppers came with a truncheon, I ran across the road and dived into a garden shed. I was absolutely cacking myself like, because they all came at me with shields and they went by a garden shed and they hammered about 3 kids into a cornfield on the side. I got out like, I managed to just get away from it all that day.
When you think of solidarity that we had in the 80s, and you look at solidarity that there's in kids, what kids have got now, they go and sign a contract, that's it. I mean, they join a union and it's like a token gesture join a union.
We'd had an arrangement with the steelworks at Scunthorpe that we would allow them to have sufficient coal with our approval just to keep the boilers ticking over. British Steel decided arbitrarily to start running coal from Orgreave without any sanction from us to overcome the blockade at the ports. Now, once the battle started and people started to get injured and the bloke next door come in with his skull split, then of course it became the politics of the last bullet fired. So we started to try and hurt them and they piled more people in. There was also the idea, of course, that the miners going there every day and fighting it out was a national target, and every striking miner in Britain could go to Orgreave. If we could prick somebody's conscience, the workers would down tools and march to that field in Orgreave and flood the site with workers and close the plant down. That was the strategy. Also, all of the left, who never tired of talking of revolution, could actually put their papers down and come and do something constructive and fight in that field alongside us.
We were highly trained in tactics that most police officers wouldn't use, or which were new. I would say at that time, I joined DSG in beginning of December '83, and we just started using short shield formations. I don't think I'd been there about 4 weeks when we got issued our own personal riot gear. Looking back now, in retrospect, it seems like we were being trained up for a specific role.
When Orgreave finished, there were some miners we afraid charges. They were charged with afraid that carries a maximum life sentence. If they'd gone near a picket line and got caught, then it would instant imprisonment, wasn't it? Because they broke the bail conditions.
My husband at the time had been to Nottingham and he came back, and I was with a crowd of lads that had been to Nottingham, and they was really upset about the treatment that they received from the women of the working miners in Nottingham.
My dad worked down the pit for 46 years, and my brother worked at the pit, and so did I when I first left school. And for about a year, about 10 months after I came out of army, before I went to South Yorkshire Police.
I think I was appalled at the way that somebody else could be associated with a miner and they couldn't support them, but also that they could stand on a street and shout names at them and spit at them. And that really upset me.
I wish to Christ I'd never been at Orgreave.
This isn't about healing wounds. It's going to take more than an art project to heal wounds. But it was definitely about confronting something and not being afraid of looking at it again and discussing it and not being ashamed by what happened here, especially for the local people and the miners that took part.
As you come to pick it here, when the horses charged through and that, and they all scattered and that, they went running off, and there were a wall that had a big drop down onto the side, and there were a car park there. They'd gone jumping all this wall and landed on car, like. And it was the next day that he had his heart attack, like. That's what finished my dad in pits.
Got to answer for us, Maggie, hasn't she?
I mean, I'm all here doing this for my dad's sake, you know, because he can't be here and do it, and I know how he felt about pits, and you know, he was a really strong bloke on it.
I think it boils down to what you'll do when you're pushed into a corner. You know, what you saw there was, you saw unity, you saw commitment, you saw enthusiasm, you saw people dealing with all sorts of emotions happiness, sadness, bereavement, you know. Let's not forget, through all this, that people lost their lives. People were actually put into environments in prison that we never, ever thought that would happen to them.
We were like, it's all become a police state, didn't it? Yeah. Nottingham and Yorkshire become a police state.
We're performing today in front of an audience of local people, our friends, relatives, other colleagues. So I think we need to try and get it right for their benefit and put on a good show, and also put on a good show for the cameras. We're commemorating, to me, what was really something like a high watermark in industrial relations. There are very often events which things never seem the same afterwards, and I think Orgreave on that day, things really could never be the same after that. I'd like to say welcome to South Yorkshire, to all the reenactors. I hope that you can share some experience, that the fact that those of us who live here, these events are actually burned into our folklore, they're burned into our community memory and our consciousness, and we'll never forget them. I would just stress, we're all playing a part today. Let's not injure each other, let's not get too excited about things. Let's try and make it look convincing, but let's make sure we all go home safely and enjoy ourselves tonight. Thank you very much.
Staging a reenactment within living memory is always an interesting project. It's very important when you do this to make sure that everything you do is as accurate as possible and that there's no spin either way. It's important that people don't forget what happened to them. And it's 17 years ago, but already there are a few people that don't really know what happened. And at the time, of course, the reportage wasn't quite as accurate as it should have been. And we hope that we can redress that balance.
The BBC showed film of Orgreave showing the miners throwing stones and then the police cavalry charge, and the thing was presented from that moment on as a riot. When I went down that night, it just so happened I was talking to the BBC in National Union of Journalists people. They were up in arms. They said when the film came in from Orgreaves, we could see quite clearly that the police charged and then the miners threw stones, and we were ordered to transpose the order in such a way as to give the opposite impression, that the police came in because of the miners had thrown stones. And I really was horrified by this, and so indeed were they. When the matter was taken up with the BBC, they said, oh, well, in the pressure of the events, and it's easy to make mistakes. But they didn't make a mistake. Whoever gave the orders, and I don't know who it was, I doubt if it would have come from the top, but if whoever gave the orders actually destroyed the truth of what they reported.
And because we didn't trust the media, this is part of our own fault, we didn't let them on our side. So they were only ever filming from the other side. If they ever came on our side, they got beat up.
I know the media said that we acted like thugs and this, that and other, but we were fighting for his jobs, we were fighting for his livelihoods. Yeah. And personally, I lost a lot during the miners' strike. I lost my home. I'm getting emotional now. My family to a certain extent. And, you know, now to be here and bring it all back, you know.
Currently in Britain, if you do go on demonstrations, and you're obviously seen as you're defined as a troublemaker or a rioter almost before you've gone on a demonstration. That seems to be the case now. And that was definitely the case in 1984 with the miners' strike. If you turned up to a picket or a demonstration, then you were a legitimate target for the police or the state. And I think this idea of being on a demonstration equals trouble, you are a troublemaker, is creeping back into the way we deal with people who do have a right to protest.
We're going to do a rehearsal later on, but we're going to start off by doing some general manoeuvres. It's really hard for us, as you can imagine, to recreate what happened on June the 18th, 1984, very, very accurately to the tiniest detail. What we'll be doing is trying to give a general impression and be as accurate as we can.
Some of the police units are formed by people who normally march around in Roman uniform, and you've got others who are medievalists and English Civil War, etc. And then we've got ex-miners actually on the side of the police.
I'm not used to all like this. I feel a pillar for it now. Prefer to be a picket again, but I think we're short of policemen, so I've ended up being one of these. Right. I've no qualms about it. It's going to be quite interesting. See what it's going to be like on the other side of the spectrum, you know. As a
Good against grain, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've been reenacting for 17 years, up against guys with swords, maces, axes, horses, guns, you name it. And I haven't had butterflies for an awful long time, and I'm quite nervous about today. It's a bit ultra-realistic today, so we'll see how it goes. And these maniacs, I've got to look after them and make sure they don't get hurt. So, E-Group, my job is cut out for E-Group.
Hamlet is our leader. We'll be good lads.
I do hope so, boys.
Good lads we are.
I do hope so. Oh, thank you very much, Gellers. I'm a good lad, I am. Thanks, guys. Right, I've got to go to a meeting. I'll see you guys soon, all right? Thanks, bye.
All right. Bennett, no standing at back today. Get in. Get into him.
When we're banging on the shields, that's good, that's real, that's what happened. However, when we deployed our short shield teams, we just stopped the banging. And we then deployed the short shield teams because we identified to them targets.
So if you don't go down on shield, you definitely go down on the club. You don't even need to do movement. Because there was not that much baton use on the day in the field.
I'll bend over and let you
Phase
finish
2
later on.
in the village, yes, it will be. It's a bit more brutal.
I'm waiting for golden day now. It's only a matter of time when Thatcher dies.
Yeah.
I'll put days holidays in ready. 2 days holidays. There's one to get drunk and one to sober up.
After the Falklands War, she got re-elected in '83 on Falklands factor. And I think once she won a second term of election, there were going to be a brace-up between somebody in trade union movement and Conservative government. And at that time, the cutting edge of trade union movement were National Union mine workers.
Orgreave was a running sore. Here we had miners picketing from Yorkshire, down in North Wales or down in Nottingham, and in the heart of the South Yorkshire coalfield was a scab operation that was running, deliberately some would say, right through the villages, right alongside the villages. So it was a target that rankled with people. And we had a job stopping people going there spontaneously anyway. We were trying to maintain some discipline to keep the whole picket operation going.
Oh, I'd rather be a picket than a scout. Than a scout. Oh, I'd rather be a picket than a scout.
It's scary, it really is, it's awful. You see them coming, they don't stop for 1/16 of an inch of plastic, they just keep coming. The guys at the back push us to keep this up, otherwise we're dead. It's bloody awful.
What's going to be like tomorrow when they get through? Fantastic.
Fantastic.
I'm going to beat all of them.
No, it is, it does scare me, it really does. I mean, these blokes speak English, drink in the same pubs, follow the same football teams. You know, it's just a really awful sensation.
Okay.
We aren't the enemy, we didn't make them the enemy.
We want you to come halfway down.
So we're going to do it. Thank you.
I should imagine emotions will get a little bit heightened today when all uniforms get on and it sort of stirs up a few memories down there.
Well, it'll be emotional because it'll be the same as it were in 1984, I hope.
Yeah.
So it'll be bringing back a lot of memories.
I think police were forced to do things that shouldn't have been done. Many pickets, not all, but many pickets did things that they shouldn't have done. And especially round here in South Yorkshire, it became like a civil war.
What we've got now is the mounted coming in. Some of these horses are not familiar with shields and people in helmets. So what we're going to do is familiarise the horses with you. And we're going to start off very, very low key. We're going to start from just walking down the shield line. We're then going to form a tunnel of shields. And we're just going to build it up until we're familiar. So they're just going to walk past you. Please don't bang your shields. Please don't shout. Just listen and let them walk around you. Let them move around you and get familiar with you. Come back in a moment, Dan.
I mean, we used to have his car windows smashed and put a sticker on car. You have met the Met. You'd be walking in a grove and they say, "Are you a driver, son?" If you said yeah, they arrested you.
Get stuck into them, all right? If you can't arrest them, you incapacitate them. If they've got pulley arms, they can't throw stones.
Remember, ask for Scargill pays our mortgage.
Under the green jacket! Hold it down!
Snipe squad! Target! SAS top! Brown trousers!
It's a part of history that's almost been buried, that's been forgotten about, or isn't mentioned much. You don't hear politicians talking about the miners' strike much nowadays. It's not something that they want to talk about. And especially this government would almost be embarrassed by the talk of the miners' strike, because now you'd think their reaction to a similar strike would be very similar to Margaret Thatcher's government. So it's an embarrassing moment in history for a lot of people.
Even if it is a sensitive issue, you know, it can still be carried off and still done well. Be very effective. Because the thing about reenactment, of course, is it's an incredibly effective way of recreating the past.
The blood was rising ever so slightly. Still with a smile on their face, but they were.
It's easy to get swept up in something.
They were getting swept away with it.
It is easy to get swept up in it. I mean, you can even see experienced reenactors get swept up in it. In fact, getting swept up in it is probably part of the reason we do it.
Hamlet! I'm Spartacus! I am Spartacus!
And they're in a country and western scene after.
What we're going to do now is get a little bit of aggression going. We're going to try some intimidation tactics that they used to use then, along the lines of Zulus. So all you're going to do again is shout and just bang the shield at the front. If you get a whole unit doing that, you will see the result. Off we go!
When we got under that wall that we're done here.
Tell who's the miners, who's not
as far as York.
Start that to fire straight up.
Yeah.
You know who's who.
Springs back in the memory. Yeah. I mean, it were a very frightening time.
Yeah.
You know, when the police started charging and when they were doing the Zulu chant, it were really frightening.
That's what we recognise.
You know, the fun day.
A bit louder.
That's what, you know, what made you move. And they opened up, then police come out, the horses come out, then we run, then we come back, retreated.
We more or less run out.
Yeah,
we more or less run out time when they were coming.
You can see them really going to town, and it's gives it some rattle. It does. It makes you want to get stuck in with it. We weren't victims all the time, like, you know, we did give them a bit back, like. In fact, we sometimes give them a bit back first.
Who heard me shout, "Hold the line," the first time?
I mean, you shouted it the first time.
Yeah, exactly. This is what will happen, particularly when we're filming. This is why we get people, when you hear "Hold the line," everyone shouts it. So everyone sees it. When you're going, and we've got rioters and all sorts ahead of you, plus other shield units and commanders shouting at the same time, it will get confusing. Plus, even though you're training, your adrenaline levels will go up, which means you'll get aggressive and you'll concentrate only on what's in front of you.
The day after Orgreave started in earnest, the Nottingham coalfield went onto 2-shift production. It had only managed intermittently to do a day shift because it could never get enough workers through the picket lines to do the shifts. So the coal started to come out. It was a second front that had opened up. But the crucial target wasn't Orgreave, the crucial target was Nottingham. We needed to keep going to Orgreave for political reasons and propaganda reasons. But strategically, it was Nottingham that we needed to stop. Because people in other industries were saying, well, if you can't get the miners on strike, why are you trying to get us on strike? And it became an excuse. They knew damn well it wasn't just about miners. It never was just about miners or about pits even.
I work in Birmingham at the minute, and I've explained to my oldest son, he's only 10. He wasn't born when all this was going on. And he's like, worries why I have to work away. And I say, if like Nottingham lads, that some of there are where I work, and they were asked to come and do this reenactment, and I've like just blown up, because it's still in me heart what happened. And I said, how can you fucking come and reenact what's going off when you were back at work at that time? And we had not a thing. We were all penniless.
They were driving about in, they were driving about in big Range Rovers, brand new Rovers, and Mercedes and BMWs. And what we got, we were working on coal faces at 2'6", weren't we, Pat? That's what we were on. And their coal faces, what they got, they just walked down them. They were getting bonus, like, they were getting more bonus than what we were getting wages a week. And that's how they've always been. They'll never change. Even if you open pits again tomorrow, they'd still scab if it were happening again tomorrow, because it's gone on since 1926, this general strike, through Spencerism at Alworth. They were scabbing in 1926 strike, they scabbed in 1972 strike, they scabbed in 1974 strike, and then 84, 85 strike. So nothing will change for them, as far as I'm concerned, in Nottingham. Besides them, what stopped out, they're just a bunch of scamming bastards. Sorry about that.
Nice.
Where's it fucking got them?
That's it, they shut their pits, pits at first. They started on, they thought it were all our pits gonna go because they were getting easy coil. And I've heard this from old lads, and some of old lads who should have been here today are dead now. We hardly worked in hard coil, which was Yorkshire area.
Each miner group, one stone carrier only, and he's got to be a reenactor. There will be about 12 stones to throw. Don't throw them at the start of part one. We need a couple of stones thrown. I'll prompt the miner leader to say, throw a couple of stones. It only started very gradually. What we don't want to do is to have a barrage of stones and then, oh dear, we've run out of stones.
If anything gets out of hand and it goes over the top, the thing will be stopped. The audience will be explaining what's happening because there's something happened. It gets sorted out and started again. Hopefully we don't want that. We were all right yesterday, but we've got to watch it. You've got family and friends out there watching. We've all got family and friends out there watching, so we want it good. And it's for guys like you that we're doing this, so don't need to remind you. Okay, we're all right with that?
Yeah. Just add to that anybody who gets out of hand and gets caught, they won't get paid.
We don't want that either, do we? I don't.
Fuck all of them, Cooper man.
We've got a few concerns about some of the extras and sort of some of the scare stories coming out of the captain's meeting yesterday. And, sort of a few of us are a bit worried. Some of the extras sort of don't really know when enough's enough. I mean, we're all on the same side, whether we're police or miners in this instance.
What do we expect out today, lads?
Another victory to lads!
Yesterday, we were only playing yesterday, weren't we? Today it's for real. It's for real.
It's for real.
I tell you what, I'm filling up here. I'm filling up. Comrades!
Fuck 160 quid, we're going for it. The throwers off.
Somebody somewhere, regardless of government, had said that never again would a mass picket get the drop on the police, and that the police would always, at whatever cost, get the scab operation going.
Uniform on, no numbers, and For the miners, we could have took the police on 1v1, but you can't take a professional army on, can you?
Some army blokes who stood there as police officers, they used to say to you, come on, have a go, you bastard. Now, would a police officer say that?
The police service didn't have to have troops masquerading as police officers. There were far more police officers in the country than there were coal miners. The political outrage, if they'd been exposed, soldiers not knowing your basic police routines, not knowing law, they'd be more of a bloody hindrance and a risk than a help.
This guy came and sat next to me and he said, oh, Tony, he said, I was in the army. And they brought me back from Germany, put me in a police uniform. They didn't give me a number, because you know every policeman has a number, so you know who you've been dealing with. And they told me that under no circumstances were I to arrest anybody, because I didn't know how to do it. I'm just telling you this, Tony, but if ever it comes out, I shall deny it, because he would have got into terrible trouble. And I think there's no doubt whatever that happened. I wrote to the Prime Minister, Mrs. Thatcher, at the time, and asked whether authority had been given for this. And she said she knew of no authority. I forget what phrase she used, but she covered herself.
Going very well at the moment. We've got the police practising their tactics, mounted police coming through the lines now, and the miners are practising their advances. What we're doing at the moment is keeping the two sides well apart for safety reasons.
Talk me through what's happening now.
What's happening now, we're recreating one of the police attacks where the police on horseback went forward, followed by the short shield snatch squads.
Those horses are kind of quite frightening, aren't they?
They are. We have to make quite sure that these horses are handled very carefully so no one is actually frightened and falls over in front of one of them.
Yeah. Are you happy with everyone's sort of efforts thus far?
Yeah, it's going very well actually. I think the miners particularly, they have the hardest job. The police only have to stand in line and do what they're told. Yeah. The miners have to do a lot of improvising, but they're working very well.
What the fucking hell is that? What the fucking hell is that? Kiss me ass, boy! Kiss me ass, boy! Kiss me ass, boy!
How's it going?
It's going interesting.
What does that mean?
Well, this is the first time we've actually got these two groups together, and
absolutely fantastic just now.
it's still got to say what's going to happen.
That's great. But we need to make sure at the moment we keep you in the safe part.
We just have to live with it. I'm not really.
No.
Not particularly.
I think it's got a life of its own anyway.
Well, I love it.
Yeah.
The dynamic of its own. I'm not in charge anymore, really. Yeah, and I'm excited, and as you would be, but in a real situation like this, you'd be excited and you'd be a bit worried as well. Yeah. So it's as close as you can get, really.
There were a lad arrested at Orgreave from a fine, respectable family in this village. He was arrested and charged with riot, which I believe was wrong. I don't know the circumstances of the arrest, but I think the charge of riot was wrong. The case collapsed. But Mrs. Thatcher came out about this, about miners being the enemy within. That lad's brother had fought in Falklands War. He'd been a Marine. So, one minute she's calling one part of the family a hero, and next minute she's calling another part of the family an enemy of the state.
You see, the other thing I haven't told you is, that we discovered later, is that British Steel has its own wharf at Flixborough that's not manned by dockers. It's manned by British steel workers. They could land as much of the coke there as they wanted, literally in the back door of the steelworks. They've got their own stretch of railway line operated by their own staff. Now, maybe the wharf was out of production during the 84-85 strike. I don't know. But I would have thought it was a lot easier operation to land your coke at the thing than running it through what? 60 miles of strike-torn South Yorkshire coalfield at the cost of 20,000 cops battling it out every day in the field. There was something very suspicious about the whole operation. That's not to say the people who went there didn't go there with the best intention and prepared to die, for God's sake, because that's what it was like. That's what it was like. The people there were prepared to kill us. And to be frank, we were prepared to kill them.
We were in for a tanning anyway, at some stage each strike. But we didn't expect it on South Yorkshire's own backyard.
Right.
And once we knew that them 30 wagons were coming down M18 and down M1, then we knew that this was the turn of the strike.
I think we're set up to be put on this site so bobbies could really have a go at us. Because we were like surrounded with dogs, horses. Up here, there was, up by this bridge, they got us cut off. They got us where they wanted us. To give us a good idea.
Yeah. This was an inevitable confrontation. Regardless, that this government had planned 5 years prior to 1984.
It was all planned out in 1979 with a Ridley report, what was going to happen. It was just a matter of time, at the right time, get the stockpiles up and then hit the miners. And that's what she did.
And if you're watching this, Mrs. Thatcher, thank you for the future of my children.
And if you're watching this, Mrs. Thatcher, drop dead.
I heard phrases used during miners' strike, referring to miners as scum, communist bastards. Mrs. Thatcher with the enemy within bullshit.
A lot of miners, particularly those who'd served in the armed forces during the war, bitterly resented being described as the enemy within. It was a very bitter time. It was a civil war launched by Mrs. Thatcher against the National Union of Mine Workers.
I think if any group of people in this country or any government gave into violence and intimidation of the kind which has disfigured our screens, there'd be no future for democracy or for any other union or any moderate trade unionist in this country.
Is this what you
if
meant?
we were to give into that.
Is this what you meant by the phrase "the enemy within"?
The violence and intimidation we have seen should never have happened. It is the work of extremists. It is the enemy within.
There's always this horrible moment about 3 minutes before you're all due to form up that you think nobody's ready. But I think they actually are ready to form their units and go onto the field.
They've made the decision to come here to Orgreave to prevent the coke going across to those steelworks.
17! Move well! To the left hand! Left hand! Wheel!
It's fantastic. I've shook hands with a lot of lads that I haven't seen for well over 17 years.
If somebody comes out of their house, they're not an extra, they're a local resident. So just warn them to get back inside.
Let's get going now. The sun's coming out and let's get on that field and let's get moving.
There are in fact 2 rope barriers that have been placed in front of you for your own safety.
It's going to be difficult to persuade people to strip off topless as miners if they're freezing cold, but we'll see how it goes. Ambulance men there in the fluorescent jackets, that's what they are.
And we've also got some policemen in ambulance. They were the first aid.
Okay, that's great.
Got a phone call from my gaffer, my boss, saying, "I'm sorry, Mike, but your rest day's cancelled."
So sorry, it's just it's strange to remember that day, and it fills me with some emotion.
I was told that the next day we're going to be the biggest mass picket yet, and that they needed all blokes they could get.
Now, there was something funny about the whole operation because whereas in Nottingham they'd put roadblocks on and we fought pitched battles on motorways, at Orgreave they had signs telling you where to go. This way to Orgreave. They had arrows pointing you to where you should go.
We arrived sort of about 7:45 time. As we approached that morning, there were police waiting inside lanes, vans and buses.
All you needed, I thought, was an official starter with a flag and a whistle to set us off. And then we could batter each other for 3 hours, go for dinner, have a pint, come back again, do it again in the second half.
If it's all like it was then, the adrenaline will be pumping high.
I'm used to working with horses, muskets, pikes, guns, cannons and all sorts of things. But can I just explain to you what we're going to do here on this field can be in itself as dangerous.
We're going to set him on lights and roll him down.
At that time, 17 years ago, I was fit as a butcher's dog.
Coal miners are tough guys.
In my eyes, we're law-abiding people that were there just to do peaceful protest.
We just hung about really, and then somebody got a football out, and we had a game of football and that.
7:30, first rocks started coming over.
Apparently bricks, but they were Cloddyworth, coming over.
The lads on strike had what they call a push. They started chanting, here we go, here we go, here we go, and they'd come down like a big mass of men.
Yeah, pushing was an enormous part of the business. If you'd gone and not pushed, then you hadn't been there really.
Things started to go wrong. One or two missiles were thrown to the back of the police ranks. Here come the shield officers.
If you're going to take it all, lads, let's go for them. If the wagons are coming, we know they're coming, let's go for them. Let's get in there. Let's be prepared to go to prison, and let's go. Bang, hit that thing.
Here we go, here we go, here we go. Here we go, here we go. Here we go, here we go. Here we go. Here we go, come on.
More police arrived and more police arrived, and it began to sort of, the tension changed.
When you start using dispersal tactics, what you're actually doing is going from a defensive strategy over to an offensive strategy.
Not long after we arrived, the police decided after the Zulu chants on the shields to turn to one side and send the horses through.
When the command came for the ranks to break, that was a quite horrific scene, like to see these 3/4 of a ton animals just come through.
I looked round as I was coming back down the field, and I saw one of the lads, there was blood streaming all over his face and down his shirt.
We saw Bobby coming out, being led out by two of his mates. I don't think it was South Yorkshire lad, I think it was Foreign Force lad. And he must have caught a brick coming over from an high trajectory because it looked like his nose were hanging off.
And we approached the police lines and I said, I'm taking this lad to an ambulance. And they opened up a little bit, not greatly, you know, they weren't helping.
It's hot, you're sweating, there's rocks coming over. Every now and then, you hear or see somebody go down who stops a brick in face or something. get pissed off.
As we went through, I felt a blow on my hand, and I wasn't quite sure what it was at first, and then I realised one of the police lines had truncheoned me.
You can't arrest them, you incapacitate them. If you've got poorly arms, they can't throw stones.
If you went the other side to get first aid done, then you didn't come back.
At this point, Acting Chief Constable Clarence decided to order the miners to retreat.
You do not move back 100 yards. I shall be forced to deploy the short shield unit.
It was never about economics. It was never about an uneconomic coal industry, some Victorian coal industry. We had the most modern coal industry in the world. We had coal faces with like 5 people on them, with people pressing buttons and operating coal cutting machines, still dirty and black and dangerous. But I mean, there weren't old-fashioned coal hewers with a pick and shovel. This was the most modern industry in the world.
I believe that the 84-85 struggle isn't a closed book. No. That even though the mines or the miners have depreciated in number, they're still here as doing different professions or whatever the different jobs. Right. And the working class is still here. Yeah. And like I said, this kind of confrontation will arise again in the near future.
It's hard to keep an overall perspective. I mean, mainly you're just concerned about what's happening around you.
You just get into the front rank and there'd be bricks falling on you from your own side. We always thought it was cops and NCB donkey jackets that was throwing them bricks, because it could never hit the cop, it only ever hit us with them.
It's bloody dangerous being in the short shield unit. It's far more dangerous than being in a long shield unit, because there's a chance you can get cut off, separated, and get your head kicked in, or even worse.
I'm almost certain they felt their very lives were under threat, and the police had gone beyond the call of stopping a picket line. They'd gone beyond that to seek and destroy.
The horses went through, as usual, picket scattered, and we ran up behind the horses. And then when they realised that this time we weren't stopping, like, panic broke out.
Very obvious at this point that Clements is determined to clear the field in front of the coking plant.
We're coming to the way now, come on!
Now, our orders for that specific point was just keep to the road, go up to the bridge on Highfield Lane, take the bridge, and form a shield line.
Not only had they chased them through the field, but they'd chase them into the village as well.
There were loads of blokes on the left field and they seemed to be like vanishing.
I ended up breaking away to the left, and then I come to the railway embankment where there was bodies rolling down it everywhere and scrambling up the other side.
It was cutting in all directions, and I don't think anybody that was there was well aware geographically what the best lie of the land was.
It only seemed to me at the time that there were small numbers going over. I've subsequently seen photos, there were bloody hundreds. How nobody got killed, I don't know. A lot of bobbers were losing it.
They just had the total disregard for anybody.
It's fair to say that anybody who got caught got truncheoned to the ground.
Ordinary people out doing the shopping and that, you know, and they're running between shopping baskets and everything.
I hated that song when they used to sing it, going in chanting, "The Miners United will never be defeated." Yeah. It's a complete fallacy. Yeah. It's a wrong. It was a wrong song to sing, and it's proved 17 years on that we lost. The Miners United were defeated because what it should have been the Workers United shall never be defeated, because it weren't just a minor question. It was a working class question.
People travel through South Yorkshire or mining communities and all they see is slag heaps and piss and a bit of muck and grime. They don't realise about the love and the closeness that exists in mining communities.
Look at the desolation. Look at the areas. Go to Goldthorpe, go to Brampton, go to Thurcroft, go to Dinton. Dereliction.
riddled with poverty. Most people on benefits, one form or another, are working on the black market, antisocial crime, heroin addiction.
It is always easier to defeat the enemy without, because they can be seen and identified. When you get violence and intimidation and extremism and militancy within, it is very much more difficult to defeat. But violence and intimidation within, they are the enemy of democracy.
One of the reasons I joined police were I wanted to do something for the community I came from. And thanks to Margaret Thatcher, I did. I helped to destroy it.
I think people couldn't understand it in 1984-85, particularly 1984, from the Orgreave, that we could be witnessing strategies that could try to break a human being. It was barbaric. They were honest working men. And they reduced them, or they tried to reduce them down to bully boys.
And I was with Arthur Scargill in May Day 1984 in Derby when a man jumped onto the platform and struck him across the stomach and winded him. And it appeared in the papers that he was, the man who struck him was a dissatisfied working miner. Actually, he was a retired police officer. And the lies that were told, but they don't, you know what they say in wartime, truth is the first casualty. And in a strike of that kind, I mean, truth went out of the window.
Had they held that picket line and we'd won, think of the things that wouldn't have happened. The wars that we wouldn't have been involved with, the attacks on benefits that wouldn't have happened, the ongoing unemployment, the whole change in social policy about benefits and privatisation, the whole things that could have happened and didn't happen. We always said it was a winner takes it all contest. Unfortunately, we lost and they took it all.
Industry must be modernised. You can't leave it in the last century. Every national coal board has been able to carry on that way. Every government has accepted that we must carry on that way. Every previous national union of mine workers had accepted it. So what we are saying is nothing fresh or new, but we must be able to carry on to secure a really flourishing good coal industry.